Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to be getting into something pretty interesting, the logic behind martial arts and why certain spots on the human body are specifically targeted in self-defense.
Yeah.
You've pulled together some pretty cool stuff for us to dig into, like some pretty fundamental stuff about, you know,
Yeah.
how fit you need to be as a fighter, all the way to the nitty-gritty details of, specific points you can attack on the body. So
Yeah.
let's really try to break this stuff down
Yeah.
and get to, the real why behind how these techniques work.
Absolutely. So I think the material you've provided here gives a really nice overview. So we have a couple of different books from Meyer and Meyer Sport, touching on a few different facets of martial arts. We have the work of Christian Braun. He talks about general physical preparation for fighters, but also has some insights into the world of MMA. And we also have Helmut Kogel's look into the deeper aspects of karate, looking at Katabunkai and Arno van der Veer's introduction to Muay Thai and its foundational techniques.
And then the source that really gets into like the real meat of what we're looking at today is an excerpt from Attack Points in Self-Defense in Martial Arts, which brings up this idea of Kyusho, which we're definitely going to get into, and even gives a detailed anatomical breakdown of a key target area.
Like the armpit, a.k.a. the
Gaxilis. So for you, the learner, the mission of this deep dive is to kind of move beyond, what the targets are. We want to understand the why.
Why do these techniques work, and kind of move past this general idea of just causing pain to actually, what are the effects that these techniques aim to achieve on the body?
Yeah.
And hopefully this will give you a much more nuanced, informed perspective on self-defense principles.
Okay, let's dive in. One of the first things that really stood out to me from Christian Braun's fitness for fighters was just this like non-negotiable idea that, fitness isn't just like a plus in martial arts. Yeah. It's absolutely essential if you want any kind of success at all.
Yeah. That's the bedrock, isn't it? I mean, as Braun kind of lays out, you need a combination of different physical capabilities as a martial artist. So flexibility is going to allow for a greater range of motion in terms of your techniques, and can be crucial in preventing injuries. Quick reactions, obviously, vital for both executing attacks and defending against them. And then you have the necessary build and strength, especially when you consider techniques that involve grappling, lifting, throws. And then to kind of tie it all together, you've got good stamina and coordination, which allows a practitioner to maintain effectiveness over the course of a confrontation.
It makes total sense. It's like you can know, every technique in the book.
Right.
But if you don't have the physical capacity to actually do them with the speed and the power that you need, it's kind of like having a blueprint for a house, but not the tools or materials to build it.
Precisely. And building upon this fundamental requirement of fitness, we see the increasing prominence of mixed martial arts or free fight, which Braun also delves into in his ultimate guide to no-holds-barred fighting.
Yeah, no-hold-barred fighting. I mean, that's a name that gets your attention.
Yeah, that definitely grabs your attention.
It does really point to this trend of, these fighting systems that are kind of incorporating all these different techniques and strategies, moving away from kind of the limitations of a single discipline.
What's fascinating here is this rise of MMA likely reflects a demand for techniques that are going to be effective in a less controlled environment. And this would naturally lead to an emphasis on understanding how to exploit an opponent's weaknesses, which connects directly to our discussion on attack points.
Now, shifting gears a little bit, Helmut Kogel's The Secret Karate Techniques, Katabunkai, introduces another really fascinating kind of layer to this. He talks about how like a true understanding of karate goes so much deeper than just the surface level movements. It involves years of study, delving into the Okinawan origins and these so-called secret techniques.
If we connect this to the bigger picture here, these secret techniques, they're not likely to be magical or mystical or anything like that. Instead, they probably represent a very deep understanding of principles. Like leverage body mechanics. And quite possibly the very precise application of force to specific anatomical targets. And it suggests that within traditional martial arts like karate, there's often a much more profound level of knowledge regarding how to effectively disable an opponent
Right.
that might be immediately obvious.
Yeah. It's like there's the, the visible technique, like the form, and then there's this whole other level of understanding the underlying principles of like how to use that technique for maximum effect.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what kind of knowledge is embedded in those
Yeah.
traditional forms. Then we also have Arnaud van der Veer's book on Muay Thai,
Yeah.
which focuses on kind of the core elements of this like incredibly demanding sport.
Yeah, Muay Thai is renowned for its powerful strikes
Mm-hmm.
using, the entire body. And as Van der Veer emphasizes, a key aspect of Muay Thai training is the development of body awareness, exceptional stamina, and a high degree of physical control. Again, these are all foundational elements that would be crucial for the effective application of techniques targeting specific vulnerabilities.
Right.
You need to have mastery over your own body in order to precisely and powerfully
Right.
target weaknesses in another.
Okay, so we're kind of building this foundation here.
Yeah.
Fitness is key. Realistic combat demands these techniques that are actually going to be effective.
Yeah.
Traditional arts hint at this kind of deeper knowledge, and disciplines like Muay Thai cultivate this like incredibly, refined body control.
Precisely.
This seems to kind of naturally flow into like the core of what we're talking about. This whole idea of Kyusho and attack points as detailed in attack points in self-defense and martial arts.
Exactly. The authors, Stefan Reinisch, Jürgen Holler, and Axel Malushka, they get right to the core principle.
Yeah.
By stating that the fundamental objective in both martial arts and self-defense is to identify and then exploit an opponent's weak points to gain control of a situation.
And I think it's worth noting, too, like these authors aren't just, theorists. Reinisch has a really strong background in jiu-jitsu and self-defense instruction. Holler is an athletic trainer with huge experience across multiple martial arts and training instructors. And Malushka has trained in a bunch of different disciplines and co-authored several books. So it's not just abstract theory.
Right.
This is coming from people who have serious real-world.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think their combined expertise really lends weight to their approach.
Right.
What I find particularly insightful in their writing is their intention to move away from vague descriptions of techniques causing pain, paralysis, death, which you often encounter, to provide more precise and understandable explanations of the actual physiological impact of these techniques.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to say you're targeting a pressure point,
Yeah.
To cause pain.
Right.
But it's a whole other level to understand, like, why that specific target is effective on, like, a biological level.
And the authors, they rightly underscore the ethical responsibility that comes with this knowledge for any martial artist.
Right.
Understanding the potential consequences of your actions is paramount. Yeah. And this is where Kyusho comes in.
Okay.
So think of Kyusho as the dedicated study within martial arts of these vital points on the body. It's a systematic approach to understanding where to strike.
Right.
And why those particular locations are so effective.
Right.
Due to the underlying anatomy.
Yeah.
Such as nerve pathways, blood vessels, or bone structure.
Okay, so let's get down to like the specifics. The excerpt we have gives this detailed examination of a very particular attack point. The armpit, or as it's medically termed, the axilla. So just from like an anatomical perspective, what are we talking about here? What are we looking at in this area?
The armpit is essentially the area directly beneath the shoulder joint, where the arm connects to the torso.
Okay.
It's bordered by the pectoralis, major muscle in the front, the latissimus dorsi muscle in the back, and the rib cage on the inside.
Okay.
Crucially located relatively superficially within this area are extensions of the brachial plexus.
Okay, brachial plexus. Now that sounds important.
Right.
What is that?
So think of the brachial plexus as the main network of electrical wiring for your arm.
Okay.
It's a bundle of nerves that originates in your neck and shoulder area and then branches out to supply nerve function to your entire upper limb.
Wow.
From your shoulder all the way down to your fingertips.
Oh, wait.
Within the armpit itself, several major nerves branch off from this plexus, including the median nerve, the ulnar nerve, and the radial nerve. These are the same nerves that run all the way down your arm and control both sensation and movement in your hand.
So when you're, targeting the armpit, you're essentially directly impacting these major nerve pathways.
You're hitting a major junction box.
Yeah.
And
a result of that, according to our source, is nerve pain or neuralgia.
Precisely. Because these nerves are relatively close to the surface in the armpit region.
Yeah.
A focused strike or pressure applied there can directly impact them,
Yeah.
potentially leading to significant pain that can radiate down the arm. Yeah. Think of it like hitting a major pressure point in an electrical circuit.
Mm.
It can disrupt the flow of energy. The median nerve is crucial for sensation in part of your hand. The ulnar nerve is the one you might bump and get that funny bone sensation in your elbow, and then travels down the arm, and the radial nerve helps with extending your wrist and fingers. So a well-placed strike here has the potential to disrupt a wide range of crucial functions in the arm.
Now, the excerpt also points out some, very practical considerations when it comes to actually like targeting the armpit in in a real world situation. I mean, it's not exactly the most, accessible target, is it?
That's a vital point.
Yeah.
So while anatomically vulnerable, because of the concentration of these major nerves,
Right.
the armpit is generally not an area that's easily exposed in a confrontation.
You don't usually see people standing with their
They
arms.
typically stand with their arms raised
in a fight.
in a fight, leaving it wide open.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And as with a lot of targets on the torso, it's often, protected by clothing, which can offer some degree of cushioning against any impact.
So while the potential effect on the nervous system is significant if a strike lands accurately,
Right.
the practical application requires a good understanding of angles, precise timing, and potentially creating an opening to gain access to that area. It really highlights that just knowing where a vulnerable point is located
Right.
is only one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
The ability to effectively target it
Right.
in a dynamic, unpredictable situation
Right.
is equally, if not more important.
Which brings us back to that initial point about the importance of fitness and coordination.
Absolutely.
You need that agility and the fine motor control to actually land a focused strike on something like the armpit.
If we connect this back to the broader themes we've discussed, understanding why the armpit is a vulnerable point.
Yeah.
Because of the underlying concentration of major nerves.
Right.
Likely informs the techniques and strategies you might observe in various martial arts. It's not simply about striking anywhere.
Right.
It's about having an anatomical understanding of what you're trying to affect.
Yeah.
And strategically choosing your target accordingly.
And it really does add like a whole other layer of understanding to, those secret techniques in karate or the, the practical applications that you see in Muay Thai and MMA. It's not just about memorizing a sequence of movements.
No.
It's about grasping these fundamental principles of human anatomy and how to exploit vulnerabilities within that structure.
Exactly. The capacity to identify and effectively exploit these vulnerable points, grounded in a solid understanding of anatomy, is likely a fundamental principle that underpins many different martial arts disciplines.
Right.
Even if it's not always explicitly labeled as Kyusho or the study of pressure points.
So, learner, as you can see from this deep dive into your sources, the world of martial arts is so much more intricate than just physical strength and aggression. There's this huge and fascinating layer of understanding the human body involved. Targeting specific areas isn't, arbitrary or based on folklore.
Yeah.
It's rooted in real anatomical vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And the potential to really disrupt the body systems, as we've illustrated, very clearly with this example of the armpit and its direct connection to those major nerve pathways controlling the arm. This knowledge provides a much more strategic and informed perspective on both self-defense and martial arts training.
And considering the detailed anatomical information associated with even a seemingly singular attack point like the armpit, it prompts a thought for you to consider what other seemingly ordinary areas of the human body might hold similar strategic significance within this vast and varied landscape of martial arts techniques. And how might a deeper understanding of these principles not only refine our approach to combat, but also enhance our own awareness of our physical vulnerabilities and strengths.
Food for thought. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
For the deep dive.
My pleasure.
See you next time.